So, Mary, I am really happy to have you here today and to be talking to you.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, every time we connect, I feel like we always have just such deep, juicy conversations, and I'm really interested in what we're going to talk about today because from everything I know about you so far, you have such a grounded and soulful and the word medical is coming up, but spiritual and like true health and wellness, like that you've done such a deep personal exploration of it. And now we're helping so many people through that. So I'm just excited to dive in. And I'd love to start with you sharing just a quick background, how you got to what you're doing now, what you're doing, and then we can dive deeper.
Yeah. So, basically, I'm an orthopedic and pelvic floor physical therapist, and I have been in the industry for 14 years now. And about 6 years ago, a little under six, actually, yeah, it was about 6 years ago, I was diagnosed with cancer. And at the time, I was doing all of the right things. I was exercising, I was eating gluten-free, which we thought, gluten-free, dairy-free, and I was drinking turmeric smoothies every day and all of this different stuff. And then, then I found a lump above my right collarbone, and that's when I knew. I was like, something's off. It was a golf ball sized tumor, and it took me a while to get diagnosed. There was a lot of gaslighting in the process, like you're too young to be sick and all this stuff. And then there it was. They had diagnosed me on my birthday, my 33rd birthday, that I had cancer.
Wow.
But it wasn't finding out that I had cancer that was a scary thing. It was, am I dying? Right? Because there's a difference between being diagnosed with cancer and then being diagnosed with terminal cancer. I mean, both can be deadly. And in that moment, nobody could describe why. It wasn't in my family history. I was a good weight. My blood pressure was normal. All these things from a traditional Western medicine perspective were healthy, but I was sick. And so I couldn't get the answers from anything in Western medicine explaining why I got to this point. And not crapping on Western medicine, it saved my life through chemotherapy, but there are pieces that there's a lot that still is not explained, right? And so a lot of chronic issues, chronic conditions. And I had chronic fatigue after having mono for 20 years, and or 20 years prior, I had chronic fatigue because of getting really sick around the time I was 18. And I started correlating these massive sicknesses that I had with extreme emotional distress. And that's when I knew, and I had looked into Eastern medicine. Eastern medicine was, you're not speaking your truth. So it was my throat and neck area. And it just changed everything when I learned that, because I was shut down. I had grown up in a hyper-religious community where, you don't ask questions and women stay small. I was in a relationship that was not healthy. I did not have support overall. There wasn't I didn't feel unconditional love really in any aspect of my life, except for maybe a few areas, but it wasn't a well-rounded thing. I wasn't fulfilled by my life. I had just started my physical therapy practice a year prior, and I didn't realize that I was already dead inside, and cancer woke me up. And obviously I say this 6 years after, and I have dealt with a lot of grief and anger with it, and numbness and depression and anxiety, but it was such a gift to me to wake me up. And that was the beginning of my awakening. And once I remember it was vividly one time getting chemo, my first round of chemo, and looking out the window and be like, why did I live for everybody else? This moment and this day, I will never do that again. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how to get out of this people pleasing, but I'm going to figure it out. And that set me on this whole trajectory of true health is actually the day-to-day, who you are, your thoughts, your beliefs, the people around you. And ever since then, I've just been on this mission of when people are in chronic pain or they're dealing with pain in the clinic or some type of the body's not reacting as the way you would anticipate, I start diving deeper and understanding their nervous system is chronically dysregulated because of something else going on in their life. And so all of that to say, it woke me up to, oh my gosh, are we missing the point in healthcare? And now I'm on this mission to blend mind, body, soul, because our body will speak to us when our soul's out of alignment with our higher self. So yeah.
Well, I love that.
The gist of it. And then I own a orthopedic and pelvic floor integrative physical therapy practice in Austin. And and I have my own podcast too.
Yeah.
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 TMI Talk with Dr. Mary.
I'm super excited to get more into what you're doing. I want to talk about perimenopause, and I know that's a big focus, or one of the big focuses, right, of what you do. I'm excited to get into all of that. And I had this question arise as you were sharing. And you and I have obviously met, hung out before, and we've bonded over having similar experiences and very different cancer journeys. But, I was diagnosed with a tumor in my 20s and in a similar place of, I was in a very toxic narcissistic relationship. I was financially in distress. I was completely misaligned with my job and bored and just really unhappy. And in a place in life where I also wasn't encouraged to be fully expressed, where I was encouraged to be a people pleaser and similar religious backgrounds, all the things, right? So I feel the depths of the truth of what you're sharing about our bodies signaling to us that something is really deeply misaligned with our soul. And my question for you, as I've been thinking about this, how far does that go for you? Like, so I can look at a tumor diagnosis, right, and having cancer, and I see how, oh my gosh, that chronic, dysregulation was just, I believe, and suppression of all my emotions and voice made me sick. Mm-hmm. When people get colds, when people get pneumonia, when people have illnesses that and granted, I don't like to compare illnesses in terms of seriousness or what's more debilitating for someone than someone else. But I think the point of my question is, what's your feeling? What's your belief about, like, is it any time that we get sick that it's related to something going on with our soul, or like, where do you draw the line there?
No, I love that question, because I do think that there can be a lot of shame built in, like, if you get sick, well, oh, it's my fault, or I didn't do this or that. And I already come from a shame-based background, so I try to avoid that. I think I like to think of it more as, what is our body trying to tell us versus, oh, you're sick because you didn't do X. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Just usually when we get sick, it's when our body's been trying to tell us to slow down and we're not as in tune with the internal cues, right? And, I don't know exactly, I don't want to say pneumonia is related to XYZ, right? I don't want to say these blanket statements. I think those are pretty harmful. I like to look at it from a physical, emotional, and soul level, right? So you still treat the physical body, right? Like, I'm not going to just have positive thoughts when I need antibiotics. I'm going to work on my mental health during that time. I'm going to reflect on where in my life and maybe I am not living up to my highest self. And then rest and take care of my physical body. So I like to think of all of them as intertwined, not just kind of one or the other. And I'm evolving on my spiritual path, so I'm still in the newer phases. So I could change and understand this in a different way, even in just the next 6 months. And so I want to be careful with that, because people do have chronic conditions. I'm talking about the ones that are kind of people can't figure out, right? My brothers have muscular dystrophy. Well, one passed away, but that's something that they were born with, right? So I'm not going to say like, well, there's something here, maybe there's something on a soul level where, trying to understand why people have to suffer or maybe are in pain in this lifetime. But I guess my point of where I'm trying to get at is more of looking at it from all of those approaches versus just this one thing. But usually it's rooted in my theory behind it and what I feel for myself and what I have seen is that when your nervous system's like chronically dysregulated, the body can't fight things that it could normally fight before. So things you're maybe predisposed to start kind of coming to the surface because our body can't use the way our immune system can't function the way that it normally would because it constantly thinks we're running from a bear and it doesn't get that replenishment time. And I also think that fight or flight is cortisol is given a bad rep, but we need cortisol too. It's not having cortisol, it's never giving your body a break from it. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes perfect sense. And the other thing that came up as you were sharing is I'm hearing too that it's also an individual journey for each person. So you're looking at, these multiple different factors that are at play, but also the individual, right? And what they've been experiencing, what they're going through, why one person gets a cold or pneumonia might be different than why this person got it. But that ultimately what I'm hearing is when there's emotion or consistent dysregulation in the body, you can't fight things so it's taking it more as a signal of what does this have to teach me and show me.
Exactly.
Versus it's more, I think, the Western medical approach to say, oh, you've got this, it's because of this, right? Instead of like really going deeper and holistically understanding what's going on.
Totally. Yeah. Because if you go the other way, and I've been gaslit by Eastern medicine too, right? So like you can kind of be blamed on both sides. And that's why I'm like, oh, hell no, we're not doing this. Like I believe most of us that are deeply chronically dealing with certain things like health conditions, a lot of us I'll speak for myself, was deeply rooted in shame and understand the way I was talking to myself every day. And if we can start noticing how we're talking to ourselves, because that keeps you in fight or flight too. And then that keeps you in this, for me, like this perfectionist state, this constantly feeling behind, because what's the deeper root of all of that, right? Somebody at some point told us we weren't enough, or it was signaled to us that we weren't enough, that we needed to produce in order to be loved. And that's the root of it usually, or something along those lines, right? Again, I'm really against blanket statements, but it's understanding that. Yeah.
So going back for just a moment to the cancer journey, because being diagnosed at 33 and from past conversations, I know, you had quite a healing journey. I know we've talked about that moment where you realized you were going to lose your hair. Can you speak a little more to what that was like and what it was like to have cancer at that age? And you also mentioned it's when you woke up. So what were sort of the pivotal turning points that led you to this greater awakening?
Oh, deep-rooted pain, numbness, questioning why I fought cancer just to live in a world with, like, right after I went through cancer treatment, 6 months later was COVID. And then 6 months, like during that time, I was going through divorce. Everybody's fighting. The people around, like it was a chaotic time. We all lived through it, right? And I remember thinking to myself, why did I fight cancer to live in this world? And I was very numb for a long time, very angry. And you sit with it enough times and you're like, I have two choices. I can continue down this victim path, which like does not feel good and it's depressing. And I can shut everybody out and say, oh, this happened to me and yada, yada. So I deserve to be angry and it's everybody else's fault, right? Or I can take accountability for why I married this person in the first place, why I constantly feel this need to go, 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 why I have chosen people in my life at the time that don't truly love me unconditionally, and I'm constantly seeking affection. And I just remember just listening to a lot of people that I admired, and hearing them say, just like, keep going. There's going to be this lonely period of time as you're evolving, and just trust on the other side of that, you will find your people and you will be there. And so I just kind of put my head down, did the work, kind of became a bit of a hermit. And I mean, I still was working in my practice and connecting with people that way, but I just didn't want to open up to anybody. And I truly didn't know what it felt like to have this kind of unconditional love. And I did have that. I truly felt that from my ex-father-in-law, who passed away around that time too. So it was just like, oh my gosh,
so much grief. Yeah.
So much grief. And I didn't know how to handle it. I had no tools. I knew nothing. I know nothing. Like I didn't know breath work. I didn't know meditation. Like I just knew antidepressants, and I knew like weed.
Yeah.
And like it was at the time where I was like, okay, well, it was great because, Texas has like made it so you can get medical marijuana. But that can also be like a numbing agent too, right? So if you just do that and you don't use it to kind of think deeper and understand like what you're doing with it, sometimes you just want to chill, whatever.
Right.
But like, what is kind of the intent behind it? And I just had no skills and I didn't know how to get them. And people that were so advanced on the spiritual journey couldn't speak my language, and people that were so disconnected, like I didn't recognize them anymore, and I didn't relate to them. So I didn't know where to go. And so that's kind of where I went into, I've voice recorded my entire journey. I started it probably in 2021. I documented a lot, like a ton of writing. So if somebody's going through a really hard time right now, just like write or voice memos to yourself, because you go back and you look back, and I have images stuff from like 4 years ago, and I don't even recognize who I was.
Yeah.
Even in videos that I do for like my social media and stuff, I'm like, who is she? Oh my gosh, you're such a baby.
I can relate to that for sure.
Totally. And but it was the ego death, really, that at that time. I had lost like 80% of my hair. I had to shave my head. I had cystic acne. Was isolated, right? Everybody was worried about me because I was one of the people at risk, because one of the chemos I had used, bleomycin, affects your lungs. So like I was at risk. And nobody thought I was at risk when you looked at me because I was wearing a wig. And so there was just like so much pain and so much deep-rooted grief that I was processing. And again, I had no tools. And so I made it my life's mission to start blending all of these into health and bring awareness to it. Because there's so many people like me that aren't getting answers and they don't know what to do.
Yeah. Tell me more about, let's fast forward to current day. And you brought up before how we're just missing it in the health industry. And I certainly have some of my own opinions about this, and having gone through my own journey with, I think I've told you about this before, being 16 years old and my best friend's mom passed away, and I was in some deep grief, and I went to talk to a counselor, and the first thing was getting on antidepressants, my own history with anti-anxiety medications. And not that, again, I believe there's time and places and purposes for all of that. So I also don't want to crap on Western medicine. It's also saved my life when I had my tumor. There's a lot of goodness in it. And I also know I've experienced feeling like a number, or feeling, like not a real person. I've experienced being gaslit, talking about possible perimenopause, and just being dismissed very quickly. I think especially I've talked to other women where that's such an area that we feel there's still so much unknown about. And again, clearly I have my passions about how we treat depression and different things versus focusing on true healing. And I'd love to hear where you feel we're really missing the mark in healthcare. What do you think
I think
the answer?
Both sides are like not listening to each other. Like I get gaslit from Eastern medicine people.
Tell me more about that. Can you give an example?
I'd say that it's more of a little blamey, that you can't hone in your energy, or maybe like people like just saying, oh, just speak your truth, like this just happened, or maybe even not necessarily just saying like Western, but like even like the wellness world or Eastern, it's like the wellness world, like just eat less sugar. Like I was not eating sugar.
Yeah.
Sugar did not give me my tumor. I'm sorry. It was the chronic stress I was under, and I was always like a sickly kid. And when you start like looking at all of that stuff, I think I was sickly because I wanted attention. I feel like that was just kind of who I was, and I'm speaking for myself, so I'm not saying everybody that's sick want like, but I'm saying like let's go to like some deeper rooted stuff. Is I was chronically stressed. I was one of 6 kids. 2 were severely disabled, so the attention naturally goes to those children, rightfully so. But there are still other children in the family that are grieving too. Watching your siblings slowly die over 48 years is horrible. I mean, he was 10 when I was born. Like 38 years is horrible, right? And so like there's just like a lot there. And so I just wish Western and Eastern could talk. I wish we could just have, I just wish somebody would have told me after going through chemo that I found acupuncture myself. And or somebody had told me about it, and that was such a game changer for nausea after chemo, helping my body process it. And I didn't really believe it at the time. I was just like, well, let's just try this, right? And the time that I missed it, I got super sick, and I was like, wow, there's really something to this. And so, and I wish I knew about lymphatic massage back then. Like I had no idea that that was helpful for detoxing the body. And I just wish both sides, wellness, Eastern, Western, I wish we could all come together in a place where we're not bashing each other, because bashing just goes nowhere. But I just wish I had more resources at the time than I do now. So where I'm at is I believe in a blend. I will say that till I'm blue in the face. It's a blend, right? Like I was on antidepressants for 20 years. I'm almost off, but like I had no other tools. So I needed to be on those, like, or else I don't know what I would have done, but I wish that I knew. Obviously everything has happened to get me to this point, but a lot of the stuff I talk about, I'm talking as if I'm talking to my younger self, in that maybe you're on an antidepressant because it's a bridge to, while you're in this season of life where you're really struggling, okay, great. Like use the things that you need to get you through, but just know that in my like point of view, these are signs of something deeper. And so maybe the nervous system needs that extra support right now. Or I mean, hell, I'll still take ibuprofen if I have a headache or something. And I'm like, yes, I know. And then I'll do the other stuff. But sometimes you're just like traveling and you don't have time and you're just like, whatever, right? You know? And so I don't like that either, you know? And so it's funny because I met some people recently who are in the pharmaceutical industry, and they're like, oh, don't say anything bad about the pharmaceuticals. I was like, I don't think pharmaceuticals are necessarily bad. I think that people need to know what their options are. That's all. Let them decide. They can do what they want.
Yeah.
But it's not like, it's like, you know, when you go to like a restaurant and they bring out like their dessert table and you get to pick and choose, right? You're like, ooh, okay, I'll take that one. Well, what's the side effects there? You know, what's my buffet? And let me choose. That's what I want for people.
That's beautiful. And I'm also hearing this theme has come up about the being gaslit as well. And sometimes the assuming you were on sugar when you weren't. And so I'm also wondering how you feel about and I imagine this is very a significant part of your practice of having more space for people to be more heard and to trust people more when they're expressing, you know, what's going on with them. And maybe even like one of my personal desires for the health of our nation as a whole is that we teach people how to connect more deeply to their bodies and trust their bodies and tap into their bodies and understand, you know, because I believe we all have the answers inside of us. And it's a combination of having the answers inside of us in terms of realizing like something's off with me, there's something, and maybe even if we slow down and really connect, we can start to notice like this food's not aligning with me. Or like for me, I started realizing as I was exploring my perimenopause journey / sleep disruption journey that I've been on over the last year, was having incredible sleep disruptions, on and off actually since I had my daughter. And I started noticing or feeling this impulse to want to give up chai tea and caffeine. And granted, I talked to some people and it's like, oh, there's barely any caffeine in that. You're drinking in the morning. It's not caffeine. That's not the issue. We're talking to somebody else and it's like, you should absolutely never have caffeine. That's going to, and anyway, just exploring it for myself, came to realize like, oh yeah, you know what? I keep feeling this, like chai's not necessarily agreeing with my body, even though I enjoy it, even though it's a fun, like comforting thing that I drink every day. And when I finally gave myself permission to give it up, I'm feeling more energized. And there's still sleep disruptions. There's still other things going on, and I want to keep, exploring and getting support. But I think there's a real opportunity there for us to be more connected, to our bodies, and trusting people and helping people trust themselves. I'm curious how you feel about that, or what role does that play in your
No, I love that because, well, I'll say a lot in a society that values capitalism over most human beings, right? I'm not saying capitalism is necessarily bad, but like unchecked capitalism is what I'm talking about, right? There's a lot of benefit to people not going inward, right? Because if we're scrolling on Instagram, which don't get me wrong, I do too, and we're constantly a consumer, we're consuming information constantly. We don't have the ability to think for ourselves. So we're going to go with programming. So we're going to go with, okay, well, all the girls on Instagram are wearing the same exact outfit and they're doing the same exact thing and they're wearing the same exact gym outfit. So I'm going to do that because that's what I see other women doing. Right. And so then that maybe like that clothing brand makes a bunch of money because they're just hoping that I don't know if that's like the best example, but I guess my point is that like it doesn't, you just see what you see and you unconsciously don't challenge it. Another example would be just like even with like sex on TV, right? So if you're watching a TV show and all of a sudden, a sex scene comes on and it's just not realistic, right? Because it's like it all happens within 2 minutes apparently. And there's like all of a sudden the penis is in the vagina and like the woman's having the biggest orgasm of her life. And I'm like, this is bullshit. Like, this is not real. Like, I know the anatomy and it can take up to 45 minutes and it takes some time. And I know from the just needing to be aroused through either clitoral stimulation or other types of stimulation. So the vaginal wall lengthens to allow room for penetration. And then that's when the muscles are relaxed. So I know even if from an anatomical level and physiological, I'm like, this is not possible.
Right.
Like, or if it is, it's just like 1.01% of the population that this happens to. So I felt so much shame with that, even just kind of like around my sex life, because I saw what that is.
Oh, yeah.
But anyways, my point is that there's a lot of people that don't benefit from us going inward and knowing our stuff, right? So like, it's because it's free to go inward, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who makes money off of that? And I think it's important that we pull ourselves out of being consumers and take time to reflect. Does this feel good? Is this a hell yeah or a hell no? And I know that so many women are going through this in perimenopause because when your estrogen decreases, you're just kind of starting to get to a point you're no tolerance for BS. Like you're not in that space. And so that's why I like perimenopause. I'm in the early phases is because you're around people that are seeking. They want to know more because what has worked before, what we thought was working was more coping. And our bodies are saying no because our hormones are changing so much. So it's this pivotal point in someone's life where I think it's almost a rebirth. And I think perimenopause, like people are so scared of it and I get it. There's a lot of changes that can happen, but when you move through it, it's like forcing you to evolve into the person you've always wanted to be because you don't have the tolerance to handle it anymore. And also on top of that, we're conditioned to be people pleasers and to just take it and not not stick up for ourselves and things like that. And so what happens is your intuition and your body signals kind of get all wonky. So it's hard to listen to your body when you've done that your whole life. So what is, people have said to me, listen to your body. What does that even mean? Like, I think the basics is, are you hungry? Do you need to pee? Are you thirsty? Are you tired? Like, just start noticing those. And so all of that to say is, I truly believe we go inward first. And I remember thinking, what does inward mean? It just means sitting with yourself in a calm, regulated state. So I remember thinking, like, what's my intuition versus anxiety? Well, if you're in a grounded state, your heart, like you're feeling relaxed, your muscles feel relaxed, you don't feel like you're having racing thoughts. That's usually when you can kind of tap into yourself. If you're dysregulated and you're reactive, or you're stressed, or you feel like you're running around with your head cut off, or your muscles are tense, that's probably not the best time to listen to your body. Does that make sense? I mean, you're still listening to it, but like to go inward, you would need to bring your nervous system down through breath work or movement or something along those lines, and then reflect. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Let me go deeper into perimenopause, because I think it's such a important topic, a under-discussed topic, and becoming more popular now.
Yeah.
And also, like I said, places I know people experience a lot of confusion. So what's actually coming up right now is what do you want men to know about women going through perimenopause?
I love this. We was just talking about this. I run a perimenopause community event I just started 2 days ago, but I want them to know, just to educate themselves on it, because it's going to affect everyone they know in their lives at some point, right? Like if they have a daughter, if they're married to a woman, if they have a sister, and all of a sudden they start changing around 35 to 50 and you don't know what's going on, they're not crazy. Like they are just, their hormones are shifting. They feel like they're crazy. Like there's a lot going on. So how can you support them? The biggest thing is that the nervous system is it's easily dysregulated during this time because there's a lot of fluctuations. So how can they show up and be a safe space and remove their ego out of it? Like if they need alone time, might have nothing to do with you. Maybe they're just emotionally just drained, right? If they love foot rubs at the end of a long day and they've had a long day, right? Like anything you can do to support their nervous system and validate what they're going through versus just being like, I don't know what's going on with her, and that's a normal response if you don't know what's going on.
Right.
And so I would say that educating on understanding what's actually happening, listen to some of the podcasts. I mean, it's everywhere, menopause stuff is everywhere now, but really understanding what's going on. I mean, it can last up to 10 years. So it's vital for them to understand, especially if they're married to a woman or dating a woman of that age range, to know what's going on and help support them. Because I don't have a partner right now, but oh my gosh, it would be so wonderful if he did his research and was like, hey, look, I saw this is helpful, or this person said this. So you feel like you're on a team about it. It's not like you're on this island alone, because we've already done that for so long.
Yes.
We're tired.
Yeah.
I want to do this.
Yeah.
We need people with us.
Honestly, it's activating me in this moment that you even said 35 to 50, because I think I may have told you this, but when I went and saw a doctor about this and brought up that I've been wondering about perimenopause, my sleep disruption, my energy, I've been noticing some mood swings, and it's just harder time regulating my emotions.
You're definitely in perimenopause.
Well, that was my belief. And then the first response was, you're too young.
Yep.
You're too young to have
I've gotten that too.
Right. And I'm like, well, I'm 38 and well, you're having regular periods. So if you're having regular periods, you can't be in perimenopause. And granted, mine are slightly, maybe a little shorter, not quite as like, they used to be consistent 28 days, like all the time, and they're not anymore, but it's still pretty close. So that, when she said that, I was like, okay, well, maybe, this is this is all in my head.
What's a regular period to them?
I think it was 26 to 32 days or
That was
something
what
like
they
or
said?
34 days or 35 days. If it was in the 26 to 35 day window, that's a regular period.
First of all, like that's like a massive number.
Yeah, I might be off a little bit,
like,
but it
the
was
point
something
is
around
that there
that.
is a big. Anyway, sorry,
Yeah,
I didn't mean to
yeah.
cut you off, but keep going.
No, you're okay. Just yeah, so yeah, there was this big window. It was basically like, look, once you start skipping periods is when you'll know that you're in perimenopause. And so at first I started doubting myself and thought, okay, well, I must be crazy, until she said to me, have you ever gone to therapy? I think you're just stressed. And then I thought, oh, this woman doesn't know me at all. And then it hit me. It was like my gut had this knowing of, oh, I'm sorry. And then the next comment was, you should consider Ambien. And that's when my gut was like, oh no, this is not the conversation I want to be having. I don't have a desire to take Ambien every night to sleep. That's not where I'm at. So it was good. It was a good practice of trusting my gut more and going and having more conversations. But there was a lot of this confusion and hearing certain things here, other things over here. And then with my husband too, it was an interesting journey, because here I'm experiencing more emotional dysregulation, and that isn't common for me, or hadn't been historically. And I think on one hand, everything you're saying, I'm like, yeah, that, I of course want my husband to understand that I'm struggling with emotional regulation, and we've talked about it, and in some ways he's understanding, and in other ways, when I get angry, and respond and snap at him, he gets defensive or gets upset. And there's definitely times where I've thought like, oh, I wish he could just, and I want him to understand this is hard. And on the other sense, if he snaps at me or gets angry with me, I don't love that either. It's not, I also don't want to just have permission to snap at him all the time because I'm in perimenopause.
He's not a punching bag. Yeah.
Right. And I think, so I'm just kind of processing some of this out loud, that it's such a gray topic, right? I just think there's so much more need for even more education. And also, from what we've been sharing, or what you've been sharing, I'm also thinking about this, and what's been helpful for me is shifting my view from being a victim to perimenopause. Because I think that's been a big storyline, or it's either women are dealing with it behind closed doors, like, oh, we don't talk about that. That's, a taboo topic publicly. Or it's kind of like, oh yeah, it's the whole, oh, she's on her period, she's being bitchy because, it's that time of the month again. Like that whole stigma that we have, that I think, I didn't realize until honestly recently, like the last 6 months, was still really driving some of that. Like I had embarrassment and shame. And so I'm showing up with my husband, like, come on, you need to get this. I can't help it. And that energy and that victim energy isn't ever really,
It's like sticky, low energy kind of
stuff. Yeah.
Well,
it doesn't invoke a great response from him. And rightfully so. And so I'm not sure exactly what my question is here, but
I get what you're saying. I think it's super important. I think this about chronic illness too, as somebody that's been through that, is like, if you identify with it and you make excuses based on it, it's like certain times, yes, you might be exhausted. I'm speaking for myself. Like I felt myself being like, oh, well, I just have chronic fatigue. Like, so I can't do that, or I don't do this, or I don't. And I just started, it became part of my identity, and then I became a victim to it. And when I started becoming a victim, I felt worse. I started more fatigue, more pain, all this stuff, right? Because when you're staying in that cortisol and you're not tapping into other aspects like your dopamine and your oxytocin and your serotonin, and you've got these other things that you can kind of tap into that help with your nervous system and your body. It's like our own little pharmacy in our brain. And if we stay victim to it, yes, it can be frustrating. Yes, we can be angry. Yes, we are upset because it's 2025 and we're still not understanding perimenopause. Why is it 2025? It took us to this movement. There's a lot of grief coming up for women. There's a lot of anger that's coming up for women. They want to blame men or the patriarchy. And I get it. I get it. Like all of that is rightfully so. We've been oppressed. Okay. But what do we do with that?
Right.
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 I don't want to sit in that.
Right.
I've done that. I did that for a long time about other things with my health and my body. So I started a supportive community group, right? Because I was like, the more conversations that we're having, the more we can rise up together, the more we uplift humanity. So my whole thing is, yes, it's okay to be upset about stuff. Yes, it's okay to kind of be in it. Let's just not fall victim to it. And let's do something to help elevate humanity with it. So I'm very careful with this group that I want us to be able to be supportive, right? And say things that are frustrating us, but not sit in it. There's a difference there.
Yes.
Because I've been in like group circles before. I'm like, this is depressing. I actually feel worse because nobody's moderating. It's just like, we're kind of just like ruminating.
Yeah.
And so how can we redirect, feel the feels, be angry, because you don't want to suppress that.
Right. Right.
Because anger
Or
shows up.
bypass with shame. Like, it's the balance, right, between victim or shaming yourself of like,
Totally,
you
right?
know, like, oh, this is all my fault. And like,
Yeah, exactly.
you know, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm losing my patience with my husband, or I'm having mood swings. Like, oh, I just need to, like, I don't want to deny or bypass that. Well, hey, there's things happening in my body that is making this harder.
Exactly.
Right.
So there's like this, and you might not think clear, and there's a lot of stuff. And Eastern medicine says how like anger is stored in the liver. So if we stay angry, we need the liver to process all these hormones that are changing. So that's really, we need to optimize our liver during perimenopause. So if I'm not, like for me, I'm working through something called estrogen dominance. So like my progesterone's a bit lower in relative to estrogen. So it's a ratio. So the progesterone's still higher. But if you're not producing as much progesterone, that happens sometimes when we're in chronic fight or flight, our body prioritizes cortisol over progesterone. So that can cause it. Or if your liver isn't processing the estrogen well, we start collecting more estrogen in our body. And that's when we can start getting like PMS symptoms, stuff like that. So this also pops up during perimenopause, which is and acne and stuff like that. So that's what's happening to me. And so I'm working through multiple things with that, but the liver is going to be super important. And from an Eastern medicine perspective, we're holding anger because we're mad at the patriarchy, right? Like patriarchy doesn't benefit anybody. Like it might seem like it does, but men are suffering too.
Yes.
I don't want to say like suffering, they're in pain.
Right.
Right. Even though they seemingly benefit from it. And, you know, I heard somebody say the other day, well, they have the ability to change the systems that they build. I'm like, their grandparents built it. Like, or great-grand, you know, there's like, and I didn't know my great-great-grandpa. Like, sure, maybe he set up these systems too. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, you can be angry about everything if you want to be.
Right.
But you don't want to suppress it.
Well, and what is the anger doing for you?
Yeah.
Right. What's it bringing you?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why I like somatic exercises. Because like when I get angry, I just like want to throw like a medicine ball.
Oh, yeah.
Throw it and you like let it out of your body, and then you can scream into a pillow or punch a pillow or just like get your anger out. I also feel like it's been stigmatized for women not to like get their anger out because they're hysteria or like, you know, this whole thing of that maybe they're crazy.
Right.
Like,
right.
You know, I think that the underlying conscious like thing we're trying to avoid is not seeming crazy.
Right. Right. I think women tend to feel like we're too much. Yeah. So when we get angry, and I see this all the time now having a little girl. Yeah. It's like girls are allowed to be sad. They're not allowed to get angry. Boys are allowed to get angry. They're not allowed to get sad. And so I think with girls, right, we've learned to suppress anger, and it's not common for us. And now men suppress the sadness. So you see a lot of anger, a lot of rage, and just built up. Like why do we see all these men just so angry? And people are like, we don't know why. I'm like, I know why. We've told them, don't be a girl, don't cry, be a man. True masculinity is being able to cry and still being able to provide for your family and show up for the people you love, right? Like, I think we have this distorted view of masculinity as well. Mm-hmm. So there's just a lot of, and so I think too, educating men on, hey, this is why I'm upset versus like, I think a lot of movements just like want to be like, this is their fault or blah, blah, blah. Right.
I'm like,
make the other person wrong.
can we talk? Can we explain? Like, maybe, like, they don't realize what we're going through. I've talked to plenty of my guy friends, like, just kind of over lunch or just like chilling and explaining what it's like to be a woman. And one of my friends was like, I had no idea how much women live in fear about getting kidnapped or attacked, or we're constantly, when you're a single woman dating, there's hundreds of Facebook groups trying to of women trying to be like, is this person safe? Right? Like, will they physically attack me? And I think, like, I don't think men truly understand what it's like to be like that, especially, like, I'm a tall woman, but especially if you're, like, maybe 5 foot, 100 pounds, like, there's a lot of unconscious things that we're already navigating. I mean, think about all the female joggers. Like, when I am outside walking, I always have at least one AirPod out to know my surroundings. So just because.
This was something I actually said to my husband not that long ago. We were talking about it, and I was expressing that something had come up in we both trained jujitsu together, and he got smashed by one of the, like, much bigger, and my husband's not a small guy, so, like, it's not common for him, but he got, like, smashed by one of the bigger black belts and, you know, just got pummeled. And I made a comment to him about how, you know, I was like, so that kind of strength that you know, like that kind of like smushing and pummeling and like strength you were experiencing, like I experienced that tenfold with every guy I roll with, just about. And that's that feeling of like, you will never know what it's like. I live in a home with someone who can physically dominate me. And you don't know what that's like. And I trust you completely. And like, this is not a concern of mine whatsoever, which is, you know, I'm very blessed to have a deep trust in our marriage and all the things. And, it's still different that like when I walk around, when I'm outside, when I'm, you know, when there's other people around, like you just don't know what it's like to, and especially I think maybe training jujitsu, and I have experienced the strength of wrestling with men, and oh my gosh, the difference between wrestling with a man versus wrestling with a woman is undeniable. Like the physical strength is just intense. And explaining that to him that way, he had this moment of like, oh my gosh, I've just never really thought of that. Of, you know, like he's like, when I walk down a street, I just don't, and especially training jujitsu, you know, he's like, I just don't worry about anyone ever, you know, like I'm totally confident. And he said, I can't imagine what that's like to not have that level of safety.
Totally. And you and I are tall, so that's also like a perk too, right? Of being tall. Because it's not as easily dominated, right? And so it's funny because I think subconsciously over the years I have only dated people that I could probably like, not like men like my size or like thinner or something like that. I didn't realize it until recently. Because I think there was. I've unfortunately lost 2 friends to domestic violence, and I think that it's always been subconsciously there. And I think my work is being able to trust somebody that is bigger than me and truly, you know, allow that, because I haven't been with anybody that I feel like I'm pretty strong deeply too, like deeply, or that I, you know, I mean, I've dated people that are taller but like thinner, and I would lift weights, so it's like I can hold my own in those situations. And so it's interesting to really sit back and be like, wow, what would that be like, you know? And how do these women that are smaller than me feel, you know? And I'm 5'9", 175 pounds, like I could just sit on someone and crush them.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, this is bringing up for me that just why the importance of why safe masculinity is so important. So important. And how it supports the feminine ability to let go of control, to surrender, to receive. And it takes a really deep safety to do that.
Well, I think that's why a lot of men are lonely right now, or they're angry, or they're upset, like that their partner maybe isn't listening, or like, or this stuff where they don't feel heard, or maybe they don't want to have sex, their partner doesn't want to have sex with them, and it's just like, go deeper. Because it's not it's go deeper and work on the inner stuff that you're struggling with so you can show up for her in a soft way. And so what you've seen almost is this like opposite where women are more in their masculine and men are more in their feminine. And I think we all need a blend. And so if we can switch that dynamic, I don't think most women want to be in their masculine. Like, it's exhausting.
I also think there's a lot of women who think they're in their masculine, but are actually in wounded masculine or wounded feminine. Like
I would say maybe it's the wounded
and...
version. Yeah, the wounded version of masculine. Yeah. Like this.
Not all, but some.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah.
My own journey with this, but yeah.
No, I've been in my wounded masculine energy. I don't need a man, and da da da, and I do this, and it's like, ew. I don't like that. I said that I've probably said that on my own podcast, even just probably like 2 years ago, and realizing no, because my future partner, I don't want them to be saying that. That's, like I want to put out the energy that I want them to have.
Yeah.
So,
well, there's room there to lead more with your own desire, right? Of like, I think when we're in that wounded masculine of like, I don't need anybody else, or I've got it. I know for me, I mean, control was, and I'm still dismantling it, really big of like, I can take care of everything myself, right? Like I managed all the things all the time and all the details, and it's exhausting.
It's exhausting.
And it blocks you from really tapping into and just more beingness, being with desire. And the more and more I've gotten into my desire and realizing like, oh, it feels really good to receive, from a man, and to be held and to slow down and not control everything and trust and, how it's going to unfold.
I also think too, like for me, like I'm not in a partnership, but I think that being able to open and receive, like you were at my birthday get together and everyone was saying like really sweet things about me. And I was like, I wanted to give everybody a compliment back.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to just receive this. And then my friend Mona next to me, just feel it, Mary. Just feel it. And I was like, oh my God, everyone's so nice. I don't know what to do. I feel like I need to like think like, and I was like, that's where I'm going to practice receiving. And so I didn't compliment anybody else after. I don't think I did. I don't remember, but like I wanted to.
I think you said that. You're like, I want to compliment you all because I love you, and I'm just going to receive this.
I'm just going to receive. And I had the same thing happen another few days ago. I was at my friend's house. I had no idea we were celebrating my birthday again because they were out of town. And everybody went around. They did kind of the same thing. That one of them was like, let's say what we love about Mary. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was not expecting this. And everyone said like the kindest stuff. And I was like, I want you to know I'm very uncomfortable, but I'm just receiving this. And that's my work, because I don't receive well either, because I don't want to say never. I don't know if I've ever felt safe enough to receive without something on the other end, right?
Attached.
Like, I was given things in childhood after maybe, a bad experience with a caregiver as a like make up for it type thing. So I started associating gifts with fear of retaliation or something before or after. And I remember specifically one person I was dating, we were out at a resort and I saw this necklace. I was like, oh, it's so beautiful. And it was fairly expensive. And he was like, oh, I'll get it. And I was like, and I like full blown panic attack. And he was like, what is going on? I'm like, I don't know. And then I sat with it. I was like, I think I was associating it with like a condition. And where I'm trying to do is like, I want to remove that association. I think that also depends on the people you're around. Right. And so I'm careful who I receive from.
Yeah.
Because there's energy attached to it.
Right.
So
how are you said you're working on it. How are you working on receiving? Or
kind of what like that, and also in my work.
How else are you? I should say.
In my work, like letting my team do what they do and just like let them shine and really help them evolve as humans and and kind of just like releasing this perfection, something that everything has to be perfect all the time in my business. And it's still a struggle. I'd say where else am I working on receiving is, I'd say like that's like my biggest thing is just allowing people to show up for me. I think that like, for instance, one of my friends just retired and she was like, let me take you out. She like bought me dinner and then we went to a concert and I was like, I don't want to be your like sad friend that you have to pay for. And she's like, why would you say that? She's like, I wanted to give you a gift, which is fun. Like I'm able to do this now. Like I worked hard and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, I'm going to receive it. It doesn't mean in my narrative was, oh, she probably thinks that maybe because she has all this money now or something that maybe I'm less than or something in that was the narrative that I was saying. And I go, oh, that's a weird narrative. I should probably sit with that and be like, where did that come from? But so I think I'm just receiving anytime somebody is showing up for me in the way that they want to. And being a generator, I have to respond to stuff. So I'm not actively like going out and like this hustle culture stuff, which just could be a whole nother podcast on business. If I started honing in more of my energy and like putting myself out there in ways that I love to do and then seeing what resonates and then I respond versus like kind of constantly being in this hustle mode of gotta get clients and this and this. No, I'm like, I want to be the business where people just talk about us and rave about us, that like we don't have to go out and hustle. It comes as it's a different energy. It takes more time to get that, but I like it.
It's got real ease.
I don't want to convince anybody to work with me.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
I'll explain the benefits. I'll be like, hey, this, I'm going to teach you about your mind, body, soul, how all of this is connected. I want you to learn for the rest. Like this is an investment in your life to understand your body in ways you didn't know before. And like, that's a lot of what people say when they come to our practice. I have 2 other PTs that work with me and a functional nutritionist and a front office assistant. And I just want people to, like learn and feel accepted and loved because and so I created a space here at our office to do that because it was something I was seeking forever and I couldn't find. So,
yeah, I love that, Mary. I truly love the work that you're doing. I think
you.
it's so needed. I have one last random question, and I know it's time to wrap up. And I'm just curious, as you were talking about the resistance to receiving, and I can relate to a lot of this journey, right, of the receiving compliments or support. And I just had this memory of when we talked, and I don't think I said this earlier, but when we talked about losing your hair when you had cancer.
Yeah.
And I had shared with you that was my biggest fear when I was diagnosed with my tumor, and they said I might need chemo. And I remember you said, the fear around it was not wanting people to know or think of you as the girl with cancer. And I related so deeply to that. That was, my sister was getting married at the time. And I remembered thinking, oh my gosh, I might be bald at my sister's wedding and everyone will know at the wedding that I have cancer. And there was this deep, a fear of being pitied. And I knew, and to this day, I don't enjoy pity, right?
Nobody does.
Nobody does. Yeah.
No. Yeah.
So there's some of that, but it just came up for me as you were talking. Do you think this relatable experience we had of not wanting to be known as the girl with cancer, that there was some fear of receiving in that?
I think that there could be. A lot of people wanted to show up for me that I wouldn't let. A lot of people were like, we wish we would have known sooner. There was a lot of hiding, a bit more about like when you're a clinician, you don't want patients worried about you. Because my whole thing was always making sure that it's centered back to the patient or the client. When it's client-centered, they can heal better. Their nervous systems feel safer. They're not having to take on other people's stuff. And I feel like that is not talked about a lot in healthcare. And that's truly what I believe is good bedside manner and holding space for somebody. So a lot of it was that. Another piece was feeling embarrassed because I didn't feel beautiful I didn't feel pretty. I had already struggled with body dysmorphia, thinking that I was just hideous. Like, I really hated myself at the time I was diagnosed. And I look back at pictures and I'm like, oh my gosh, this poor little girl, you know? And I think it just gave into the narrative that that's when I realized I am very self-conscious. I had no idea how much my hair was covering that. And then my eyelashes fell out, and then I had scars, and I had a chemo port, and there's just a lot that comes with that. And so you're just kind of bare. You're stripped down to nothing. And you have to really look inward.
Yeah.
You know? And if people don't after that, I think sometimes it can be scary to do that. It can be scary to know, like, what does inward even mean? What makes me upset? What are my thoughts that I'm having all the time that aren't helping me? Why am I feeling this need to go, go, go all the time? And I still struggle with that. And that's something I'm actively working on, is feeling behind. Am I behind because I started my business 7 years ago? And should I be at this point? You know, I know plenty of people that have multiple locations and triple the amount of employees and revenue and all that stuff, but I'm also like, meh. I had 2 locations. I didn't like it. I like one. And I don't need to get big, because when you get big, there's more expenses. And so at this point in my life, I don't want to grow my in-person practice massive. I want to keep it like a little local gym, like gym, not gym, like GEM, you know, like one of those finds where people, like, when they find us, like, oh my God, like, I have to tell everybody about you guys, you know? And so I kind of like that whole vibe.
Well, you're doing what really aligns with you.
Yeah. And it took me all of that to get to that point. And I'm thankful things did not take off sooner, because then it would have taken off as like a generic PT practice. And it's not. We're really where you go. My whole marketing thing is, you know, because Jill, who works with us, she treats hypermobility POTS. She also does pelvic floor orthopedics. I do pelvic floor orthopedics. Basically, that means like you're treating like the full body, including the pelvic floor. Arista's with us as well, and she does that. And Cameron does our functional nutrition, and Kelly is our front office. And all of that to say is that we really work with people who have been pushed around the medical system and are not getting answers. So the way that I market to people is, give us your most difficult patients that nobody can figure out, but they're open and they want to get better. There's a big difference, because when you're really tied to the identity of it, it's really hard to help that person heal. So they have to be open to these unconventional approaches to health, which are understanding mind, body, soul, and what that looks like.
So beautiful, Mary. We'll definitely have all your information in the show notes. Encourage anyone and everyone to look you up, to explore more. And I have like 10 more questions I could ask you, but I know it's about time to wrap up. So we'll have to have you back for part 2 sometime soon. Yeah, I'm going to literally go home today and write down my follow-up questions so we can keep talking. Thanks so much for joining me today. I really always enjoy going deep with you.
Yeah. And if people want to follow me, my Instagram is at drmarypt, and that's pretty much across all platforms. Resilient_RX is our Instagram for our business, and then it's resilient-rx.com is the physical therapy and wellness practice we have. And then finally, TMI Talk with Dr. Mary is my podcast. So
awesome. Yes. Everyone, please go follow Mary. She's got amazing content and information. Thanks for sharing it with us today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.